In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. As we journey through Advent, it is a time to stop and take stock, to think and reflect on what has been and what will be. As Christians in Advent, we wait with bated breath for the coming of Jesus. As Christians, we wait not only to remember the Christ child in the manger, but also in Advent we are preparing to welcome the Christ child into our hearts. Advent, the season before Christmas, is a less penitential season than Lent because we are preparing for Christ's birth rather than his death. We are preparing to welcome a treasured guest into our hearts and homes. There have been times throughout our history when it feels like humanity is dead set on letting the darkness win. And this year, like some of our more challenging times in history, feels different because maybe of the pandemic. We may feel weary, our souls crying out for refreshment. In a world where people are literally at our fingertips, people can be lonely for want of physical contact, and it can feel never ending. The news channels bombarding us with ever more desperate and dark stories. And amongst that, we are preparing for Christmas. It feels like we have never needed Christmas more than this year. It feels like we have never needed light so much as we do this year. And yet, we live in a world that rarely sees darkness. In the day we have the sun, and in the night, even if the stars are obscured, we see the light of the sun reflected by the moon. Terry Pratchett once said, "Light thinks it travels faster than anything, but it is wrong. No matter how fast light travels, it finds the darkness has always got there first and is waiting for it." Pratchett is not wrong. Yes, the darkness is always there. It does not arrive before the light. It is a constant, an absence of light. And when we live in spiritual darkness, it is easy to feel that the light will never arrive. The deep, cold darkness of winter can feel never ending. The world constantly sitting in anticipation of spring and new birth. The thing we must remember is that light can never be truly extinguished. It exists in one form or another. Even after a candle has been blown out, its energy doesn't simply disappear, it is transformed. In the vacuum of space, the darkness appears overpowering, but the light of stars travels for thousands, even millions of years to our sight. It may appear diminished, but it is not in absence. Light will always overcome darkness. It is its very nature. Light gives warmth and joy and hope. We walk through the darkness of Advent, waiting with anticipation not only for the birth of Christ, but also his coming again. In a world that feels despairing, it can feel as if the darkness could overtake us. In a world where innocents suffer and die in the name of all manner of causes, it is easy to allow darkness to overwhelm us. We can sometimes feel as if the light will never come. However, light lay in his mother's arms. Light healed the sick and hung on the cross, and light rose again. We may at times feel as if we walk in darkness, but the light has been with us for eternity and will remain, even if at times it feels only to be the flicker of a small candle flame. Candles ignite other candles until they stand in a blaze of glory that warms and enriches the world around them, so that the people who walk in darkness see a great light. And for those who live in a land of deep darkness, on them the light shines. And so, as this reflection draws to a close, I ask you to use the remaining time to sit and reflect on the words of John's Gospel once more, and pray and think about how in our lives, as we move through Advent to Christmas, we can allow the light within us to grow and warm us and all around us. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it.